I want you to think back to a time before you had ever played Call of Duty Zombies. What I want you to do is just try to erase that folder in your mind. Scrap your paradigm and your preconceived notions for just a minute and bear with me while I take you through a scenario. It's 2008 and you're playing the new Call of Duty World at War. As per fashion, before trying multiplayer, you have decided to finish out the campaign, and after a relentless battle through the German Reichstag, the game credits are fading away. But instead of the fade leading to a home screen, you're given a cutscene. Is this a hidden mission? An epilogue, perhaps? Your character's eyes open to see faint figures in the distance. As they close and open again, the figures grow closer. The third and final time this happens, you see one figure running at a dead sprint towards you, and an eerie title painted in blood appears on your screen. Now, there are very few people who had the real privilege to experience zombies for their first time in that raw state. But today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to try to put you in the shoes of those people, and I welcome you to the first episode of Zombies Retrospective, what may hopefully be a weekly series on this channel. The goal of this series is to analyze, critique, and reflect on old Zombies maps. Now, in an effort to fairly review this map, I thought it would only be fair to look at it from two different perspectives. The first being how people saw this map when it came out, a player who had never experienced zombies before and was just thrown into this new world. And after we do that, we'll take a more critical modern day viewpoint on what this map looks like now to us. But now, with all that said, let's get into it. When you're first dropped into Nacht Der Untoten, I think the word that most adequately describes your situation is isolated. As a blind player, you are probably feeling a lot of things. Confusion, understandably, being one of those, but isolation is the word that echoes to the very core of this map. The cutscene fills you with a feeling of panic and fear. The first thing you hear in the map itself is a bone-chilling laugh, which universally seems to communicate to players a feeling of despair. You see the zombies in the distance, slowly yet unyieldingly moving towards you. Their lack of haste seems to only further build the tension. The ambient noises of this map make you feel like you're on hell's doorstep. You're not quite there, but you can hear it in the distance. What's worse is the only thing between you and the figures approaching are weak wooden barriers. What seems like your only hope, a Colt M1911, turns out to be a sick joke. Your first encounter with a zombie reveals the utter uselessness of the weapon. Sure, you got that one zombie down, but now you only have 4 clips left, and there are many more to deal with. All of these things work to isolate the player. This is something Nacht does impeccably and is truly impressive for a 12-year-old game. Before you've even finished a round, the game has managed to communicate the utter hopelessness of your situation. You're in a game, you're a pawn, you're insignificant, and you will not escape. Now, after completing the first round, the player has likely managed to build up a small amount of points. A keen gamer may notice chalk drawings on the wall, which will work to provide the player with another drop of hope. The Kar 98K or M4A1 carbine will help to provide the player with a fighting chance for now. As you line your shots and gruesomely explode zombies' heads, you may even start to feel in control. You're keeping the zombies at a distance and remaining safe. This, however, is only temporary. As rounds pass and 3 turns into 4, you start to realize something else. More zombies are coming and they're getting stronger. Like your Colt before it, your rifles are weakening. What was once a single headshot to kill now takes 2. What was once 1 zombie at that boarded window is now 3. As they slowly start entering your bunker, you do what you must and move on. Now, whether you seek aid through the help door or salvation above, it matters not. All paths lead to the same outcome. Now, moving up provides the player with new weapons, 2 shotguns, an overpriced machine gun, or a weak sniper from a cabinet. While these weapons might serve to postpone your fate, they will again quickly turn ineffective. Even by round 7, you see the zombies growing ever more resistant. You begin to feel cramped in this small space, and your last place to turn now is down towards help. Now, the help room is where true salvation lies, as it is home to the quote, random box. Apart from the zombies themselves, the mystery box, as it would become to known, is the player's first significant look into what I would call magic of this world. It would later go on to be deemed 115, but at this point the player knows nothing of storyline. But back to the mystery box. By spending 950 points, the player takes a risk to gamble for a random weapon. As the weapons spin round and round, the player sees rifles, submachine guns, rockets, and light machine guns. But the box itself seems to only further the feeling of being trapped in a game. This box can be generous, but oftentimes will only churn out useless rifles, such as another Kar 98K or the dreaded Springfield. And really, this serves as nothing but a further taunt to the circumstances of the player. The box almost seems to have an evil consciousness of its own. Now, as the rounds continue on and double digits approach, the player may begin to feel like the walls are closing in on them. It's a small map to begin with, but it only gets worse as the rounds go on. It's no longer just claustrophobic, but it begins to feel as though you are suffocating. With no predefined strategy, the only hope for a new player is to sit in a corner and camp. And by virtue of this tactic, open spaces become the player's most constrained resource, even more so than points or bullets. Zombies are now running, if not sprinting, and this means that every inch of space between you and them must be fought for. It becomes a game of the smallest margins. Every bullet placement, every millisecond on a reload, and every inch between you and them counts. To squander any of those is to guarantee death. While the player is squished face to face with the enemy, they are given brief moments to breathe between rounds, and a smart one will spend that time on the box. While SMGs will allow you to get by, what the player is really holding out for is an LMG. High damage, fast shooting, large mags, and a butt ton of ammo is what the player needs for survival. But even guns like the mighty MG42 eventually begin to waver. And as that time comes, as the hordes begin to overwhelm, as the walls are beginning to press down and crush the player, the ray gun will be there to save you. Ah, the ray gun. The ray gun is the deus ex machina of Nacht Der Untoten, isn't it? It's like that sort of divine intervention which so often and so poetically saves you from death. You're fighting the essence of what is bad. It's an evil, supernatural, unyielding force, and through this whole time, the scales are tipped against you. You're using normal, man-made, archaic weapons, and the fight has not been fair. The evil has zombies, and this whole time you have nothing. You're severely constrained, and the odds are only getting worse. But for each reaction, there must be an equal and opposite one. And where there exists powerful evil, the scales tip and you are given a powerful good. The ray gun is your light bringer against a horde of darkness. It's like when Gandalf shows up at dawn in The Lord of the Rings. But what makes this weapon even more neat is that its power that comes with a cost. See, the weapon has severe splash damage, and if you use it foolishly, it will kill you. To jump to modern day zombies, I think this is something that we as players now look back on and hate in a more pragmatic way. But in the eyes of the release of this map, it really serves as the perfect weapon to balance out your insurmountable odds. It's the double-edged sword that you need to harness or else all will be lost. It really is quite neat. But as the saying goes, all great things must come to an end. And something that feels so cool about Nacht specifically is just how realistic it is. The way you die is oftentimes out of the blue. One zombie catches you in a corner and it's over. It's not epic or heroic or badass, it's simply realistic death. And the whole map, in my opinion, feels like that. The entire experience is a fight against death. It's inevitable, but you must make the time you have meaningful. Do your best and strive for excellence, which in the context of the game is to get to the highest round possible. Nacht was a gripping, terrifying, and addictive new game mode, and ultimately served as the foundation and building block for what zombies would become over the next 5 years. You know, all the way until Easter egg storylines kind of took over. And while it was a great experience at the time, Nacht Der Untoten is certainly not a perfect zombies map, so we must also look at some of the bad aspects of it. I think one problem with Nacht is that it has suffered from the elevation of player-based skill. You see, Nacht was obviously not designed to deal with the modern strategy of kiting or training, in which the player runs around in a looped area to horde the zombies together. With the knowledge and skills we have today of modern zombies, Nacht becomes severely undermined. One thing that a lot of players forget today is that the zombies don't hit you if you're moving, which means that the only way you can die is if you get cornered. This strategy cuts through the mirage of claustrophobia and makes this small area larger than it was intended to feel. Now, if you are able to cast your abilities aside, I do highly recommend playing it in a camping style. You can either go up top to the grenade spot or down in the help room, and it will give you a very unique experience. But it goes without saying that modern zombies has had a negative effect on old Nacht. Now, another issue, or perhaps you might want to call it quirk related to Nacht, is that there is a 24 zombie cap in solo mode. See, in modern zombies, more units spawn every single round, but in Nacht, the most you can get per round is 24. Now, personally, I feel like this makes Nacht interesting, but it certainly is odd. This means that if a strong player chooses to do the training strategy, it is completely possible to get to round 50 or higher in 2 hours. The training method is a fun alternative way to play the map and does benefit the gameplay with an additional method, but it also comes with the cost of hurting the atmosphere. You do trade the ambience of the map for a bit more gameplay. And while personally the 24 zombie cap doesn't bother me, some hardcore players do dislike the ease of the map. I'll let you make your mind up on that your own, but I think it provides a unique experience when juxtaposed to any other zombies game. Still, however, with only 3 rooms, few weapons, and 2 strategies at max, a glaring issue with Nacht is replayability. Now, obviously back in the day, players would pour days into this map, but revisiting it, your modern day knowledge of zombies will inhibit you from playing anything more than a couple of matches. My first game was an absolute delight, and I enjoyed the bare-bone natures of the map, but there is only so much you can do until interest declines. I would describe Nacht to being like the most perfectly prepared bowl of buttered rice. If you're hungry for zombies, the first bite is amazing, but it's so simple and you will grow bored of it quick. Really, Nacht is best in small doses and small doses only. Now, Nacht is also famous for being the most remade map in zombies history, which sadly has done nothing but erode the greatness of the map. Black Ops 1 and 3 have full-on remakes, and the other games have also seen small returns. Unfortunately, however, these remakes completely ruin the essence of what Nacht originally was. Black Ops 1 version gives the player a thunder gun, a quick revive, and some other beefy weapons, which only work against the spirit of what this map aims to be. And Black Ops 3 takes that a step further by introducing gobblegums, which only serve to remove any possible constraints the player had. In doing so, Nacht becomes a soulless shell of what it once was. This is because it's meant to be a claustrophobic map, not just simply a box map. The original Nacht has limited resources, which will press you together with the zombies, and the remakes take that away. The maps may all look the same, but the experience becomes more hollow and lifeless with every copy. So if you are going to play this map, skip the remakes and make sure that you play the World at War version. Now, one last thing of interest for Nacht are glitches. While completely patched now, it is worth noting that Nacht on launch may have been the most glitchy map of all time. Barrier glitches allowed the player to run, jump, and land into a small corner or crack in the wall. This would create a buffer area between the players and where the zombies could walk. With the flamethrower having infinite ammo, this then allowed players to get to infinite rounds, ruining the leaderboards. Now sure, it was a fun alternate way to play the map, and 13-year-old Patrick loved to use these glitches, but looking back, I do have a feeling that it took something away from the map. And on top of barrier glitches, there are also some weird oddities that were just never patched. For example, nukes do not give the players points. Max ammos do not replenish Molotov cocktails. You can get a ridiculously weak rocket launcher from the box that only has 4 reserve rockets for ammo. The Thompson on the wall is listed as costing 1,500 points despite only costing 1,200, and some weapons say they are deployable despite having no deployability. Now, in my opinion, these don't ruin the game and are simply fun quirks. They don't take away from the map. Instead, they sort of stand as a time capsule, preserving all the flaws and feats of Nacht and the development team in a snapshot. With all that said though, let's wrap this up. Despite criticism, Nacht Der Untoten is the crucial building block of modern zombies. It defined the gameplay at its core and served as a basis to expand into what we know as zombies today. That, in and out of itself, makes it a fantastic zombies map. For its time, it was a revolutionary gaming experience, which managed to hook the first wave of players, myself included. And for the first map ever, it still somehow manages to impress me when I go back and play it today. From the ambient noises to the amazing details like a giant supernatural moon, Nacht holds one of the greatest atmospheres of any zombies maps ever. And while its bare bones nature holds itself back on replayability, this is in fact what makes the map. Its greatest weakness is also its biggest strength. By limiting and enclosing the player, the map makers were able to create a feeling of loneliness, desperation, and isolation like no map has ever gone on to do. Nacht is by no means the best zombies map, but it may very well be the map that does the best job of being itself. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be our first episode of Zombies Retrospective. And before we end this video, I've got one really important shout out that I need to give to another YouTuber. Tim Hansen is a zombies YouTuber who has been on the rise for some time now, and he served as a lot of the inspiration for this series. Tim did a series where he essentially went through all the maps, and that did serve as a basis for inspiration for me doing this, so I wanted to give him credit and a shout out. He's a really strong zombies YouTuber, so if you want to go check him out, top link down in the description. I was going to put the shout out at the start of the video, but it just felt really clunky, and I figured the people who have made it this far are probably more likely to go check him out anyways. With that said though, thank you guys so much for making it all the way through this. I'm really excited to try a new format for content, and Zombies is allowing me to wrap that format into this content. So Verrucht will be next week. We're gonna just go through things chronologically. Stick around for that, and that's it. See you later. Peace out, you freaking nerds. All right, that was amazing. That was so much fun. Wow, holy crap, Roman. Oh my God. It's crazy how much I love recording stuff. Like, I just feel so in the moment, like nothing else, you know? It's awesome. That was amazing. I'm really happy to be back.